Exciting announcement. New issue of Inwarp Mag. Coming soon! Attention, listeners and subscribers of Inwarp Mag. Thrilled to announce that the latest issue of esteemed publication is set to drop imminently. Prepare to be inspired, informed, and transported to new frontiers.
Welcome back to another edition of Inwarp Mag. We are here to talk about the points update that just came out for 40K, 10th edition. But before we get into that, I'm Brooke, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Drew.
Hey everybody, good to have you back.
And I think we're just going to kind of get right into this one. We just saw the points update come out. What was it, last week? I think it was about a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some thoughts around it.
Well, to be specific, this one's called... This might be familiar to everybody else, but it's kind of new to me. Munitorum Field Update.
Oh, yeah. The Munitorum Field Update. Say that 10 times fast. It's impossible.
Or no, manual. Munitorum
manual.
Field Manual.
Well, if you say the right thing 10 times fast, then you'll for sure get it wrong.
Mm-hmm. I can't even say it right slowly.
Once. So, I mean, before we get into each other's actual faction, I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, like, as new players, what we feel about... I think this is our second points update that we've experienced, and the first while we've been recording this, and just kind of what we think about the points updates. And I don't know if you have any thoughts, Drew, right off the top of your head on how you feel about these points updates.
I mean, the frequency of them. I
yeah,
think we've touched on in the past a little bit. I do like the frequency of them, and I kind of like the goal of the points updates. But like the goal to balance the game, I think is good. It might not matter that much to people who play in a more casual setting, but the part that I do like is that they seem to care about bringing balance within the faction. So if there's like unplayed models, they usually will try to balance the points to give you incentive to play things that, you know, aren't very highly played for your faction, and kind of incentivize things that are just like taken as like, just take this all the time because it's so point efficient or something like that. Unless it's like the tank bustas with orcs, I guess they just want them to die. But
yeah, I definitely agree. I like that they try to balance an actual codex or index in and of itself, like that faction gets balanced internally, and then they kind of also do the external balance. But just having multiple options is super nice. We talk about this a lot, but we came from Legion, and I remember a time where when I was playing Empire, and they only had one list that was really good, and the company that ran the points updates at the time, they just never touched Empire. So you basically had to play one list to be competitive, and then all the other lists were just objectively worse. And it's nice in 40K where they seem to care about list diversity, which is very nice. It's very fun for casual players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's fun for people who enjoy list building too. So it's just nice when you get like a few extra points. You're like, ooh, what am I going to do with these extra points that I got now? Or like in the case of this go around for orcs with the codex coming in too, there's some decently big shakeups, I think, that kind of like really change the way that you think about building lists now, which we'll get into later. And I think that's cool. I think we both talked about it in our intro video, but we both really enjoy list building, so it's very appealing to us to have more regular updates, because it gets pretty boring building Star Wars Legion lists when there hasn't been a points update in like what 2 years.
I think it's been like a year and a half or something now. It's kind of insane. Like it's nice that when they make these points updates, it keeps it fresh and it keeps you thinking about it and going, oh, what can I do now? Because I had this drop or this go an increase in points. So what do I have to do now to try to fit what I want to do into the list? That keeps the game alive outside of actually playing the game and hobbying, which is cool. That's something that we really enjoy, that strategy of putting a list together. I think it keeps it fresh.
Yeah, I think like the whole trying to make things that are not played very often more appealing points wise is really cool, because like something that happens often in Legion is like there's certain units that people are like, just don't take it, it sucks, it's not points effective, and it doesn't do that much on the table. So it's just like you never see certain units in any competitive list, which is kind of lame. But
and it particularly sucks if that's your favorite unit that you hobbied and you're like, oh, I'm really excited to play this unit, and then people are telling you just don't play it because it's not worth it. It seems like 40K goes through a rotation where those units that are not played very often, that might be on your shelf, they'll come back to relevance in a decent turnaround. It's not like they're up there forever, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, if you bought something because you thought it was cool, it'll probably have its time in the spotlight at some point, or maybe not in the spotlight necessarily, but it'll be relevant that you can use it and see it on the table.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that kind of brings us nicely into our factions. So I think we're going to talk about the Orks first.
Okay.
So Drew, with the new drop of the points, but there's also the codex. We'll talk about the codex in a later episode. We're gonna try to cover that in depth because Drew obviously cares deeply about the codex just dropping. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that more in detail then. But we're kind of just talking about the points, and we'll probably touch on the codex here and there. But so we played our first game, and you have a list that you were working on, and you have some lists that you were working on after that too. So with the points updates, how did that affect your list?
Yeah, my list is kind of like not the same list anymore. I mean, one thing that
remind people what your list was in case this is their first episode with us.
Well, I think the biggest change is that I did not have the way I wanted 10 knobs in my list, and I had a war boss leading them, but then like one of my big tank was Mazrag, and Mazrag was a good solo character in the index, but now in the codex he's basically been statted out, so he should be a leader of the Squighog boys. So just, it's not really a points, he got a points decrease, which makes sense. I think like 30 points or something like that. Let me scroll to where he's at.
Is that for Mazrag?
Yeah.
He's 165 now.
Yeah, he was 195, so he got a points decrease. And let me say, so I'm showing everybody the MFM, I'm going to call it, so I don't have to say all those words.
Yeah.
This is a little confusing because this is showing like I don't own the codex yet. I don't have it yet. I've talked to you guys about how cheap I am. I'll get it eventually, but it's like showing points decreases, I guess, from the codex, not the last data slate or points update or whatever. So this is really confusing because some things...
Yeah, it shows Mazrag not being touched.
Yeah, but he definitely went down 30 points from the index, so that's confusing. Knobs, it shows it's 105 points. They were 110 points in the index. So that's a big change. Just think of how good the knobs are. They went down 5 points for 5 models.
You played the knobs against me, right?
Yeah. They're the ones that wrecked your Thunderwolf cavalry.
Yeah, they were scary, and they got some points decreases, so that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my unit of 10 knobs went down 10 points total.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Mazrag went down 30, but Mazrag would have to be with Squighog Boys probably to get his full efficiency. So, and that's another change. Let me scroll up so you guys can see it. Like Squighog Boys, we got four models now for 160 points. So they're up in price, but at the same time you're putting, so there's the knob on Smash a Squig. He is part of the Squighog Boys now in the Codex instead of being his own unit, which honestly I was so confused when I bought the Squighog Boys, and I'm like, this guy's a separate unit. I'm like, so I got 2 units in one box. I was like, that's kind of cool, but kind of confusing at the same time. Now he's just part of the unit, and he was like a 65 point character if I remember correctly. And
so he just baked in.
Now he's baked in, so it's like, I think you pay like an extra 30 points or something like that, or 35 points, and you have
it's
an additional
what is that
model.
like? Is that like a 30-point decrease then if you take the Squighog Boys with that named character, whatever his name is?
Yeah, overall it's like a 60-point decrease if you take Mazrag with 4 models of Squighog Boys.
Wow, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but Mazrag lost a lot of his killing potential, and he's not nearly as tanky as he once was. But you also have to keep in mind that he gets like the added tankiness of being embedded within a unit.
Yeah. So what did he lose that was keeping him tanky before that he doesn't have now?
We'll have to save that for the Codex review because I did not prepare for it yet.
Okay, that's fine.
When I buy the Codex, I think it'll be a good time for us to go over it, and I'll have to buy it soon.
So I guess like of what you own and what you can run, yeah, obviously we'll talk about the Codex and what detachments they have, but of that like went down in price, what is appealing to you right now?
I mean, knobs are especially appealing, going down 5 points for 5 models. The other thing
they're
that's
really efficient. They're really good.
This will probably you didn't really have any issues with this so much, but because I didn't run it, and I'll probably look at running it now. But the Beast Boss, he went up to 100 points in the index. Like, this was like 2 points changes ago, I think. And he is 80 points now, so he went down by 20 points.
Wow.
So taking a Beast Boss with the Beast Snagaboys is actually more points effective now. And they didn't...
Yeah, I think that... Wasn't that what you wanted to do initially, and then they came out with the points update before we went to Adepticon?
Yeah, they nerfed the Beast Boss, they nerfed the Squighog Boys, so like my list was just nuked. That's why I ended up buying the 10 knobs. I was like, well, these guys are cool too. And I still like the knobs a lot, so I think the knobs have a lot of play through like several different lists or different detachments for the Codex. So I'm really happy I got them.
You like the Beast Snagaboys a lot, right?
Those
models. I
do like them a lot. I guess I don't really have any orcs that I would say I dislike. Like, I know some people, they either like the Beast Snagaboys stuff or they hate it, and I'm just like, I like all of it, I guess. I'm not that picky.
Yeah, that's fair. Are there any units that you didn't run that you, I guess any units that are things that you didn't run or didn't even think about running, but now you look at this Codex or sorry, this points update and you go, maybe I'll run that actually because it looks kind of appealing now?
I think a lot of the stuff for the orcs, it really hasn't changed too much other than the things that I've already mentioned. So there's one thing I should mention is like Flash Gits went down in price because they lost Captain Badrock in the Codex.
Oh, yeah.
So 5 models are now 80 points. I think they went down 10 points. So they might be like interesting to think about taking just because they're, a little more, their value is more reflected in their points. I think they're point costed a little high just because Captain Badrock was so good. I still think they need to go down in points for me to think about taking them because it's still orc shooting and it sucks.
Yeah. And if you have one unit of 5 guys, like, what is that going to do for you?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the stuff that I really want to start taking now, they haven't changed in points, but they've gotten a lot better with the codex, and that makes them really appealing to take. I think they'll probably get. I think some of them maybe will get nerfed in the next points update. We'll see.
They'll let them cook a little bit. I mean, orcs. This is kind of their time. It feels like, you know, time to shine.
Unless you're like, I guess anytime you get the new codex, like you would hope that it'll be exciting. Unless you're a Custodes player, so ripping.
Yeah, yeah.
But like Boss Snickerot, I have him, and I did paint him because the codex coming out. He got Lone Operative, which makes him viable as a single model, where before you basically always had to take him with commandos. And again, their points haven't changed at all, and this is just like the codex changes, making them a worthwhile unit. Another unit that, like, I don't think I had in my list. I don't think I had any boys in my list when we played.
No, I don't think so. No, you don't. You definitely didn't.
Yeah, I just had the Beast Snagga boys. The boys are so much more appealing now because they have sticky objectives.
Yeah.
So I did end up buying a combat patrol box when the new combat patrol box came out because I just want to make sure I had it before, you know, it's hard to find. So I got 20 boys to paint up the mono pose boys that everybody hates. I like them. All right.
And speaking of boys, you took the truck and the battle wagon in the list that you played against me. Mm-hmm. Are any of those options that you're considering running alongside your boys so that they can, you know, obviously go inside of that vehicle, charge up the board, and come out swinging, basically?
I think one of the key points of the codex, and I'll have to double check. I don't think the truck has changed at all. I think it's exactly the same as it was.
It says
previously.
It went up. It's 65.
Yeah, I think it was 65 before. Let me bring up the app I use to put my lists together. Hopefully it hasn't been updated already.
It might. I would guess it probably has. Yeah, I was going to say, like, what was the truck at before?
Yeah,
it went up.
It was cheap. It was really cheap. I think it was like 50 points or something like that.
Oh, dang.
So it was 65 at the last points update. And the battle wagon was also 160 points. I think both are appealing. The truck is still like S tier as far as units go for
as
orcs.
A dedicated transport.
Yeah, because you can take more than 3 of them since it's dedicated transport.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
wow.
you could take like, for a while people were spamming 6 trucks. It was crazy.
And I mean, with all the tank shot going around too, like trucks. When I had that happen with my Thunderwolf cavalry with your truck, that was a lot of damage that it just did because it charged me. It was insane.
Yeah, you can put a wrecking ball on there for free. I did see one video where someone was like, "Don't put the wrecking ball on the truck because it makes it easier to shoot," and I'm just like, okay.
I mean, that is getting into the nitty gritty of like competitive like silhouettes and like I don't think we're there.
Getting into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, and then the nitty gritty
Warhammer.
Yeah, that is thinking about. I think, funny enough, I think that's like thinking about the game a little too hard. Like that is that gets really that is seriously in the nits and grits.
Yeah, I think that the truck is always going to be a staple in lists because it will keep your units alive, getting them across the board. Battle wagon is like B tier, I would say.
It seems to have like a decent gun. I know you didn't like hit it well when we played, but it seems to have a pretty decent weapon on top of it, so it doesn't necessarily have to charge forward, but it seems like it's pretty good support.
Well, I think what makes it possibly interesting is if I wanted to take like a 20 man blob of boys and throw them in a battle wagon, and it's just like this 20-man blob of boys is going to be in your face, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it because I got a battle wagon.
How many boys can you put in a truck?
You can put 11 models in a truck, so it'll take your 10 mob of boys plus their leader.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so battle wagon, if you're trying to do a 20 blob of boys, that's perfect.
It'll hold 22 units, I think, so you can attach 2 leaders to your 20-man mob of boys. So it'll take your 20-man boys unit plus their 2 leaders if you have something like that going on. So it's interesting.
Who are the leaders that you throw on boys typically?
Well, probably like a war boss, and then this is where I'm gonna get it wrong. I think a pain boy. It's either pain boy or pain boss you could throw on there, or there's like I guess maybe you could throw weird boy on there too. But usually people do like a weird boy. At least I could be completely wrong about this, but it seems like people do like a weird boy with its own unit of like 10 boys, because it's sort of like having you can do the jump to go wherever you want on the board. They're great for secondaries or contesting your opponent's objective later in the game, stuff like that.
Yeah, that seems really good.
So yeah, I guess like the news about the Orks points update, I think it's interesting to think about looking at some of the Beast Snaga stuff. I haven't done it yet just because I've been more excited about the different detachments that are coming out, and just like looking at the Bully Boys, the Green Tide, and I've been talking about the Cult of Speed is interesting to me, even though it might be the worst detachment of the Codex, but it's appealing to me. I've been looking at like those 3 and building lists for them. I haven't actually really looked at the Beast Snaga detachment at all. But with their changes, like I still need to like put a list together to see like what would it look like if I took Mazrog with the Squighog Boys, because I think there might be some interesting lists you can put together if you just do the Warhorde detachment, and then like because I have like what people would consider like a Highlander army, where I have like
one of everything.
Yeah, one of everything. Like everything's a unique list. So I think like the most effective way to play what I have would be to play the Warhorde detachment. But
is the Warhorde detachment the one that's basically the index detachment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll probably be looking to see like what value I can get out of what I own right now, and with the points decreases to the Beast Snagaboy, to Mazrog, and you could sort of consider it a points decrease to the Knob on Smash a Squig. You might be able to build some interesting stuff, and then also it just gives you a lot of hard decisions with the detachment or the codex updates for like the rules and stuff. It's going to make it a lot harder to decide what units to take and which units to leave behind, because like boys, like I want to play my beast boss because he looks awesome. Like that's a dumb reason to want to play him, I guess.
But I mean, it's like the best reason in 40K. You play stuff because you think it's cool.
Yeah, so I want to play him, but boys, they got so, I don't know. Sticky sounds amazing for a horde army.
Can confirm with intercessors on Space Marines that just having Sticky frees up a unit to just move up the field or do whatever it needs to do. That's awesome.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm gonna have Gretchen just standing on my home objective because they did not change in points. Gretchen are still really cheap.
Are they as worth it with boys having sticky?
Yes, because they still are like CP farms.
Oh right, I forgot about that part.
The one change that they got, and it's good that they didn't go up in points because they got a nerf in the codex, which is they won't get you a CP if they're battle shocked. But that honestly, that makes sense as far as like a flavor standpoint goes.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's just more hard decisions to make with list building for orcs, and I think that comes along with any army that has their codex come out. But yeah,
I'm excited to see what you do with orcs because there's so many changes here, and obviously the points update is one thing, but there's obviously the codex changes. You're gonna have a lot to play with and a lot of options and a lot of cool stuff you can do to, I mean, as you alluded to, you have a kind of a one-of mentality with your hobbying, so you have like a ton of options already, and being able to just kind of mix and match whatever you want into whatever playstyle you like, I think it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm like leaning towards doing Warhorde probably for our next game, just because it's close to the index, and I won't have to stress about getting a bunch of things painted before our next game.
And the fact that we still need to complete a game, and once we complete the game, I think that'll be telling of what you want to do from there.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think that's enough of orcs. I think one thing to note before we move on is just like rip to like all the Forge World stuff that got removed, Captain Badrook.
Yeah, pull it out for them.
Yeah, and the orc guy that was a leader on a jetpack. Bye, guys.
I mean, thank God you didn't buy any of those guys, because you'd be pissed right now.
Yeah, I mean, Captain Badrook was so good in the index that I was like, damn, do I have to get Captain Badrook? I'm like, I really don't want to have to find that thing because
I looked for him for you that one time.
Yeah, he's not easy to find.
Yeah, because I went to that store, and I was like, hey, do you need anything while I'm here? And you asked me to look for that. Obviously, I couldn't find it, but probably a good thing I couldn't find it, because then you would have worked on him and been excited to use him, and then they'd be like, well, can't use him now.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Space Marines. So, sure. Do you want to start with the Space Marines, or do you want to go straight to Space Wolves first?
We can talk about Space Wolves.
Yeah,
first,
there's not many changes for you for Space Wolves, so let's get it out of the way first.
Yeah, so like the two things that changed are Wolfguard Terminators and the Wolf Scouts. They both went down, I think, like 5 points each. Wolf Scouts went down 10. I think Terminators went down 5, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, I guess they both went down 10. Anyways, that's fine. I like Terminators, so it actually makes me kind of want to run maybe a squad of 5. I really like Terminators in general because I played that Deathwing game on Steam, and I also have that Death Angel board game, which is all about Terminators. And I think just having a squad of Terminators would be a lot of fun. So it makes me kind of want to run them. And Wolfguard Terminators are basically a slightly better normal squad of Terminators. They have like one extra keyword or something. They're cool. I kind of want to run them because I have the Leviathan squad of 5. That Terminator squad that came in that box, and I could just run them as Wolfguard Terminators, and I think that'd be a lot of fun. I also have a box of Scouts, the Kill Team Scouts box. And the Wolf Scouts are a variant of the normal Scouts. It seems like people are saying if you have extra points, go ahead and run the Wolf Scouts because you have some extra weapon options. But the normal Scouts basically do exactly what the Wolf Scouts are trying to do anyways. So if you don't have the points, just run normal Scouts. I think the most notable thing for Space Wolves is that the Thunderwolf Cavalry was not touched.
Yeah.
And they're really good. I was running, I think, the Stormlance detachment, the one that is all about moving really fast and your mounted units get benefits. Um,
Did
the
you
Thunderwolf
have
Cavalry. Oh, go ahead.
Did you have the Wolf Guard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf, or did you have the Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf?
I had the Wolf Lord when we played. I've seen people run both. I don't know which one is necessarily better, but I ran the Wolf Lord. He gets like, I think, I forget what he gets some extra benefit that makes him like, consider that extra 20 points, whether that's worth it. I took him because I thought his model was cool, and I guess he could run him as either one. But I know, like, just the fact that the Thunderwolf were not touched, because I have a feeling they're probably going to see a nerf at some point. That was kind of cool for me because I really liked my 6-man or my 6 models of Thunderwolf with the Thunderwolf Lord, or Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf, I guess is what he's called. Yeah, Space Wolves, the actual wolf specific stuff not being touched. Yeah, I kind of like it because I can kind of run exactly what I was doing before and just play with it. I am excited to potentially put some Terminators on the board because they keep going down in price. It's almost like they're trying to get people to play their Leviathan box set, trying to get them to put Terminators on the board. The other things that I was running, like Bjorn wasn't touched. I had Intercessors, they weren't touched. I had Ragnar, he was not touched. It just seems like a lot of the stuff that I want to run, nothing was really touched. And I think Space Wolves are in a pretty good place anyways, because I think Thunderwolf Cavalry keep them competitive. And it's not the only thing that makes them good, but they're definitely like the top tier for the Space Wolves.
I think my theory on the Space Wolves, since they just kind of don't, like, just looking at the Orks versus the Space Wolves, is there's a lot more diversity as far as units go. If you're running like pure Space Wolves without littering in Space Marine stuff, it's just kind of like you have a smaller selection of things. I would think like Thunderwolf Cavalry's kind of been carrying Space Wolves as far as like their win percentage goes.
Yeah, I think that's true with the normal Space Marines mixed in too.
And maybe this lowering of the price of Wolfguard Terminators will bring some list diversity to Space Wolves. So hopefully your Space Wolf lists that are doing good in tournaments you'll see some with Thunderwolf Cavalry as like one of those feature pieces, or possibly 5-man. I don't know how good a 5-man unit of Wolfguard Terminators is compared to the 6 model Thunderwolf Cavalry, but they're really close in points now.
Yeah, their best thing for Wolfguard Terminators is the fact that they can deep strike. It just makes them so good at attacking your opponent's backline or just going to capture some objective that you want them to capture. So that is super appealing for them. They have really good guns, but like in melee, I think they're better because they all have power fists or whatever I think they have power fists, but they're really good in melee. They're just kind of like a generically good at everything unit that, they're not overpowered, but they're like, if they're shooting, they're good. If they are in melee, they're also good and they're hard to kill. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool. They're probably not going to see a ton of extra play, if I had to guess, because I think the other stuff is just so much better in terms of like points efficiency for like a competitive list. Like Thunderwolf Cavalry, people are spamming 3 of the 6-man model units, so they'll do 3 Thunderwolf Cavalry and they'll do Battle Guard or Wolf Guard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf with like every single one of those, just to try to get as many Thunderwolf Cavalry with like the points efficiency of 80 versus 100. When you compare the Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf to the Wolf Guard Battle Leader, it's a 20-point difference. So they just spam as many Thunderwolf Cavalry as they can, and that's cool. I don't know if I'll ever go 3 squads of Thunderwolf Cavalry. I like them, but their models aren't that appealing to me, to be honest. I have enough to run, I think, 2 6-man models, and I have 1 that is painted. But the appeal to Space Wolves is, is more wide than just I want to run a bunch of Thunderwolf cavalry. I like Bjorn, and I like all the dreadnoughts and some of the characters and all that stuff. So, I mean, again, Space Wolves, not a whole lot changed, which is good, I think, because they were in a pretty good spot to begin with.
I heard some complaints with Space Wolves. This was like some quick reaction stuff, but I heard some people saying that maybe some of the epic characters should have gotten not nerfed, buffed a little bit through points. But I don't know. Like, just the only character I have any experience with was Bjorn, and for 180 points, he's pretty good.
He's like hyper efficient as long as he's not targeted by, I would call it like blink damage. Yeah, or like a bunch of units that they all do 1 damage per weapon that gets through, because he can't do anything about that. And he only has, I think, 8 wounds to him. So he's like, he doesn't have a ton of wounds, but if you do wounds to him with like a weapon that does like 2 or 3 wounds, then he like rounds that down. So it's like
tank shock
he can survive those. Yeah, you can tank shock him. That'll kill him really quick. Grenade, if you are playing Space Marines, you have grenade. Or I think you have. Do all factions have that, or is that just a Space Marines thing? I can't remember.
Anyone who has the grenade keyword can use the grenade thing.
Yeah, like grenade would be great against him because you can get up to 3 free wounds on a guy that only has like 8 wounds. So
I was just thinking of how hilarious it would be if Bjorn like runs out in the middle of the field and a truck tank shocks him off the board.
He is small, so he could get run over.
That would be sort of hilarious.
It would be pretty funny. I do want to run Bjorn again, and I was listening to some other people talk about Murderfang, and I have Murderfang. I have another Venerable Dreadnought kit, and I want to build Murderfang, and I could run Bjorn and Murderfang, because Murderfang has the thing where, like, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but he has the thing where he can just, like, fight over and over and over, and I don't know if he has the thing that does this. I could be completely wrong. But he might have the thing where if you like shoot at him, he can move towards you. Because he's like dedicated melee, and he just gets pissed off when you shoot at him. So it'd be kind of cool to have like Murderfang and Bjorn, and they both kind of move up the board, and both are really good in melee. But Bjorn obviously has his like the like wolf, space wolf, Hellfrost cannon is what it's called, I think. Like it's like a flamethrower, but also has a focused variant or whatever. But it'd be cool to just have these 2 named characters moving up the board. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think you blasted one of my Grots off the board with that.
Yeah, the Grots were the only guy in range that I could shoot at, and I was like, yeah,
I'll kill one Grot model.
Yeah, it was like I do 4 damage and kill one. It's like, hey, kill 1 Grot.
Yeah, not great for Horde, but could really blast like my battle wagon or truck when I was taking those. So, I mean, let's touch on the Space Marines codex or index changes too. Okay.
And I'll kind of go quick on these because I haven't run a lot of these.
Do you want me to start with the first page, like the assault intercessors? That area?
Start with that page. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, like, what did they do to my boy? My eliminators were increased by 10 points, and supposedly it's because of an interaction with the impulsor where they can do, like, a shooting platform or whatever it's called. They can shoot from inside of it, and they can, like, shoot twice, and some shenanigans with that. Kind of sucks for me because I was absolutely not abusing that. I was just trying to sit them back and, hold an objective, hold my back line, and just shoot. And in our game, they almost one-shot the truck, which, I mean, they're pretty good. They're pretty efficient for 75 points.
That's my theory.
I really like them.
That's my theory why they went up 10 points. They saw them almost one-shot my truck. They're like, he's got to come up 10 points.
Yeah, they saw our game. They saw the one-shot truck thing. They're like, no, thanks.
Those new players aren't going to have good interaction there.
Yeah, they actually were spying on us at Adepticon. They saw that game. Yeah, that kind of sucks for me because I had to So basically, all I did in my list, if I want to run the same exact list, is I pulled off an enhancement I had 5 extra points. It was 995. I just didn't have anything to spend for the 5 extra points, and I basically pulled off an enhancement that was for 15 points. Added them, and then I can add another enhancement that basically I put it on my Thunderwolf Lord that basically treats, if you put them in strategic reserves, it treats the round as being one more than it actually is, so that they can drop anywhere on the board faster, which I think is also a very good option for that squad. I mean, it's fine. I could work around that increase if I want to run the same exact list as I did. And eliminators, we saw that they're pretty good even on their own. So maybe I keep them, as is. I wanted them as basically like an anti-vehicle unit, and they certainly are. And it was basically because I couldn't afford eradicators, and it makes me kind of want to think about maybe fitting eradicators, just taking that enhancement off my Thunderwolf Lord and just going, okay, eradicators instead, a 3-man squad of eradicators, because they're 95 points versus the 85 points.
What about the assault? Do you have assault intercessors with jump packs or no?
Yeah, I bought them at Adepticon, so me seeing them go down in points, that's really cool. So I just bought them. That's great for me, right? I have a 5-man squad, and I have their captain as well. So they're supposedly really good at running secondaries. So that is cool to me. I like the fact that I just bought them and that they're actually more appealing. I guess from what I heard, they were already very good. People were taking them in certain competitive lists, and this just makes them better. They went down 5 points. Like, they just get more points efficient. So why not try them, So I might actually switch them in maybe for the Eliminator squad, and then I could run that same enhancement on my Wolf Lord, because that points difference is only 5 points versus the 10 points for Eliminators. It would actually bring me up to exactly 1,000 if I ran the exact same list, switch out the Eliminators for the Assault Intercessors with jump packs. That would be the exact same points, basically. I could do that. Then I lose something on my backline, but yeah, that it is what it is. I'm excited to try the Assault Intercessors with jump packs, though.
Now, did you mention Incursor Squad? I saw that went down in points. Is that more appealing to you at all?
Yeah, so I like the idea of the Incursor squads a lot. I actually bought for Kill Team, because I've been playing Kill Team with some other friends, and I bought the Phobos box. And in the Phobos box, you get Incursors and Infiltrators. And I have basically, with that box, I have 5 Incursors, 5 Infiltrators, and then I have another box of just the standard Infiltrator/Incursor kit, so I can build 5 more of each, and then I would have a 10-man of both. But the Incursors in particular, they seem really good as a 5-man squad. You take them basically because they have an ability to give you +1 to hit on a target that they shot at. So it's kind of like Oath of Moment on a unit that they shoot at, and then you have your Oath of Moment on whatever else that you just said, I want to target that thing, and I get to reroll my I think it's reroll hit rolls. And just being able to, like, if you take a more shooty list, Incursors are great. They're super good, I think. And they have, I don't know if they have Infiltrate. I think it's only the Infiltrators that have Infiltrate. Let me look real quick.
That would make
they
sense.
Don't. They just have the multi-spectrum array, which is the +1 to hit. They do have Scout, which is 6 inches, so that's not nothing. But they are pretty cool. The fact that they went down makes them more appealing. I think they were already pretty decent, but I think this will make them even more competitive. I like maybe a 5-man squad of them. I wanted to buy Hellblasters at one point. Maybe I'll try them, maybe a 5-man squad, but Hellblasters, to me, in my mind, I'm a new player, but in my mind, Hellblasters, they seem like a Dark Angels unit, because Dark Angels love their plasma. So I like them because they seem good. I mean, obviously, I can run them in whatever list I want, but I don't know how Space Wolfy they are. They seem fun. They get to shoot on death. Like, if they die, they get to shoot, which is cool.
Yeah.
and then like basically I think they have a thing where you could shoot hot with them, so you like, overcharge your plasma, and if they die, they shoot again. Like the guys that die just shoot again, which is kind of crazy. They seem kind of fun. Maybe as a like an alternative to something like an eliminator squad if I had the extra points.
Going down to like the second page, we got like Tactical Squad, Terminator Assault Squad, Terminator Squad, and Vindicator all went down in points. Any thoughts there?
The only one that's interesting is the standard, well, at least to me, only one that I think is super interesting based on what I own is the Terminator Squad, just the generic Terminator Squad going down 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's 10 points less than my Wolfguard Terminators. I could take, I don't know if I can actually. I'd have to look at my like Space Wolves. That might actually be replaced where you cannot take Terminators. You have to take the Wolfguard Terminators.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look that up. I don't remember. Anyways, they seem like very points efficient at 175. I guess the other one too is the Tactical Squad. If you really want to run 10 models of Space Marines, that might be the best way to do it. You get 10 models for 140 points. That is insane. Like Intercessors alone, Intercessors are, if I can find them, Intercessors are 80 points for 5 models, whereas you could take Tactical Squad 10 models, you have 140 points. It's 20 less for 10. That's crazy. Like, if you want just Space Marine bodies, and they get some interesting weapons, and they get a bunch of bolt weapons, and, they're not amazing at shooting, but if you just want, like, almost like a Space Marine horde, like Tactical Squad, is pretty cool. And I have one Tactical Squad box because I was using them for like kill team conversions. So maybe a 10-man squad of them is kind of cool. I could see trying that. They're not the most appealing because I like kind of the like specialized units. Like, in our list, in our game, I had the Intercessors as I'm going to go capture objectives. Then I had the Eliminators as my backline guys. Then I had the the Blade Guard vets, and they were my, foot slogging, guys to go capture objectives. Then I had my Thunderwolf cavalry, and they were just going to rush the board. And I like having these specialized units with actual roles in my army. So I don't know how much I would enjoy just to have a Tactical Squad, and because they're 140 points and you can't take 5 of them. There's probably other things that I would rather spend points on than having a squad of 10 models be like the same role as something like my Intercessor squad.
Now you know how I feel with the Commandos being 135 points.
Yeah, it kind of is exactly that scenario where it's like, I wish I could take 5, but you just can't. And it kind of stinks.
Mm-hmm. Now,
the other one I want to talk about, it's on the first page. You don't have to switch any graphics if you don't want. But the Brutalis Dreadnought is touched, and it went down a little bit. And I have the Ballistus Dreadnought. I obviously have Bjorn. I have a Redemptor Dreadnought, which I think you can build as a Ballistus. Brutalis Dreadnought. That kind of is appealing to me, too, because I really like Dreadnoughts. So it might be something that I look at in the future of, do I want to have a Dreadnought that I'm going to just rush you with? Because a Brutalis Dreadnought is basically a melee Dreadnought. It has like these 2 big claw things as its weapons. I don't know if I think it has like some guns, but it's mostly just like a rush forward, get in a melee. It's kind of like the generic Space Marines version of Murder Fang. So
it would fit
with cool.
It would fit with Space Wolves, I think, just being get in your face, melee.
Yeah, and it definitely would fit with like the way I was playing, where I was kind of pushing everything forward. So that might actually be something I consider, because it is such it's such a cool. I think it's a really cool model. Like the Redemptor Dreadnought's obviously really cool. It's really good, but a melee dedicated Redemptor chassis, but it's a melee dedicated model. That is cool. It seems very points efficient and maybe might see competitive play. might see my list because it is, like you said, very Space Wolvesy to get into melee.
So I wanted to ask a question about enhancements. So you played Stormlance, right, when we played?
Yes.
So a couple of the Iron Storm Spearhead enhancements went up. Does that affect anything you think you'd do in the future?
It would affect if I wanted to do a Dreadnought list. I think that's the list that is basically take all the big armored things. Like if you want to take a repulsor and then dreadnoughts and all that like heavy stuff, the Iron Storm Spearhead is like all about that. And if I wanted to go like a bunch of dreadnoughts, then obviously that is kind of a hindrance to me. I think it seems like in this edition, while the enhancements are good, they seem like if you have the points available, then you pick them up. Yeah.
Some of them,
actually,
though, are pretty big game changers depending on the detachment.
Yeah. The thing about Space Wolves, which we are kind of in a unique scenario here, because no other Space Marine faction really has access to this, is I have the Fenrisian Wolves at 30 points. Like if I was going to run the Iron Storm Spearhead and I take either one of there's three enhancements that are 30 points and above. I could take the enhancement, or I could just take another unit, and that might actually be better, So it's fine. It's cool. The Iron Storm Spearhead is, lots of armor, but I feel like if I wanted to have a unit that just screens, take a Fenrisian Wolves, because nobody in the Space Marines, any of the factions within Space Marines, nobody else has access to a 30-point unit like we do.
What did you buy recently that we were looking for at Adepticon? Would that be something you'd run in the Iron Storm Spearhead?
At Adepticon, I had
Well, we were looking for it at Adepticon. What the heck is it called? The one vehicle.
Oh yeah, I just bought that. The Land Raider.
Yeah. Would that go in the Iron Storm Spearhead detachment?
Yeah, for sure. That one would fit in there. I actually, funny enough, speaking of that, you just reminded me of this. Because I bought those aggressors, which have they have the flame guns, whatever those guns are called, but they have like the flamer guns. I actually bought an extra 5-man of the Infernus squad, so I have a 10-man Infernus. What I'm thinking is I might actually run Space Wolves, but I might run them as the Firestorm Assault. Okay. And just run a bunch of flamer stuff. Like run a Land Raider with flamers. Run Bjorn, who has the Hellfrost cannon. Run Infernus Marines with all their flamers. Like I could actually lean into flamers, which would be kind of fun. I really like the Land Raider. When we were at Adepticon and seeing the Land Raider, it made me really want a Land Raider. And I feel like running them in a Firestorm Assault force with the flamethrower. I think it's like I can't even remember. There's like a variant of the Land Raider that has a bunch of flamers on it, and it looks like one that I think would be pretty cool. And the main reason is that it's a transport, so you like push it forward, and because you're already forward, you might as well just have the thing that auto hits, and it's a bunch of flamethrowers on things that are at range because you shoved your unit or your Land Raider up so far. So it's like, why not take the thing that has flamers instead of the thing that's going to sit back and shoot at range? Because that's not really the purpose of a Land Raider, at least in how I want to run it. So pushing them forward with flamers might be interesting to try the Firestorm Assault Force. I think that would be pretty cool. And then it also gives me some other options other than I'm just going to run Stormlance because they're really freaking good for Space Wolves. It might give me like other flavors of Space Marines, like we watched. I think we both watched this, but like the Play On tabletop guys did that one battle. I think it was Bricky, and it was the Space Marine Steve. Yeah, and he did Land Raiders. He did the Land Raider with the Infernus Marines, and he had the Aggressor Squad.
He embarked and disembarked like
Yeah,
real quickly.
yeah, and it was like a salamanders list, but like it's kind of cool that because these detachments are generic, I could run Space Wolves and Space Wolves units with an army like that, where I can have an Infernus squad within my Land Raider, and have all these different flamers going on. I think that would be kind of fun. So it'd be like my own little flavor of what they were trying to do in that game. Which is, I that's like one of the best things about Space Marines is I can run all these detachments, even though I haven't gotten my own codex as Space Wolves. I have access to all these detachments, and lucky me as a Space Wolves player. I'm sure people are sick of that, but like it's nice because I can take my Space Wolves specific units and play some other detachment and just have a bunch of cool options that I have access to. I like the Land Raider because that unit or that model is just so cool to me, and slapping it into a Firestorm Assault Force, even though it's maybe not the most wolfy detachment, that's super fun, and I like being able to do something like that. And to your point earlier, like the Ironstorm Spearhead, if I want to run a bunch of armor, I can still go into the Ironstorm Spearhead and run a ton of armor. I think that's cool. So tons of options for me from the points update. There's, I think the biggest thing for me coming out of this is the Eliminator Squad, them getting nerfed, hit my list in particular, but I am excited to run like the Incursor Squad, maybe get a Brutalis Dreadnought, the Assault Intercessor with jump packs. Those are cool, but yeah, not crazy, but lots of ideas in list building are, that they're in my they're things I'm thinking about and things that I want to try, and something that I'll think about when we play next, because we want to get through a full game, and I'm debating now whether I want to try to get some other stuff done to play a different list, or if I just want to stick with my list and just get a full game under our belts and try to see what I want to do from there.
Yeah, and I think to bring all of this back around to kind of where we started, just like, again, just we've been talking about this for probably like 45 minutes now, but it's just there's so much we have to think about now with our list, just from one quarterly points update, and it's just like, can you imagine playing a game like Star Wars Legion where you wouldn't have a point? We haven't had a points update for a year and a half, and it's just like it's been stagnant since then. We've added new, basically what you would consider detachments to Star Wars Legion, so it gives you a little bit more to think about, but at the same time, it doesn't give you like that list building itch of like, oh, I want to see, like, now that this went down 5 points, is there anything I can do interesting off of that points reduction? I don't know. I just think it's like for Space Marines and Space Wolves, you didn't get nearly as much as Orks, just because I have the Codex coming. That makes a lot of changes for my list building. But still, it's just like it's only been like 3 months since the last points update, and we got another one. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it gives me something to think about, even though it's not as much as you with Orks, but it still gives me something to, list build and play with outside of just hobbying, and I can go and maybe play around with the idea of running this squad or that squad or this detachment, and it's that to me is one of the most fun things about the hobby, is I get to list build and think about the combos that I can do now that something is slightly more points efficient, or maybe they make something that they knock something down in points, and it's maybe a squad I've never considered, but now they knocked it down in points, and I'm like, well, maybe I should look at that, and then I look at it and maybe I like it. It's just like Incursor Squad is a perfect example of that. I never really considered running them, and actually the squad of the Phobos guys that I really liked was the Infiltrators, but then they made them -5 points or whatever it was, and I'm like, okay, like I want to look at them because I have them, and now they kind of look cool because if I run a shooty list, they seem really good. So that stuff is a lot of fun. It makes it a lot of fun to be in this hobby and have regular updates that keep you interested and keep you list building, and you don't get super bored with the state of the game.
Mm-hmm. And unrelated to the MFM or whatever, is just like getting the codex changes for orcs. That has me really excited about list building. And for me, I'm like, I kind of think like, I guess I'm sort of excited for you for when the Space Wolves codex will eventually come out. And I don't know, it's just exciting. And I guess,
2025 maybe.
Yeah, but I have to say, like, hearing some of the things on the internet as far as like, the Custodes Codex coming out was very lackluster in comparison to the Orcs, and I feel for people who, Custodes aren't my thing, but it's somebody's thing, and the fact that they've been waiting for their Codex and theirs came out and it was a swing and a miss. Yeah. I feel for those people because like my experience with Orcs was great, and I'm new to the game, and it's like there's probably a bunch of people who've been playing the game for years and years and years, and they're like, I'm sticking through 10th edition. I'm gonna stick through this new edition, and maybe we're gonna have a really cool codex. And then their codex comes out, and it's not what they wanted at all. So like, I feel for those people. Yeah. It sucks. And I guess all I hope for is like, I'm really excited for my codex, and it's got some really cool stuff, and even like our bad detachments are exciting still. And I wouldn't even consider them bad detachments. I just think I would consider them the flavor detachments. Like Cult of Speed is definitely a flavor of play. So it's just like I hope all of the codexes that come out will be, will hit that itch, for anybody who is passionate about a specific faction or whatever. For you, for Space Wolves, like I hope when the Space Wolves Codex comes out, it hits all those same buttons.
Yeah, I feel like us in particular, and maybe this is like self-indulgent, but I feel like we got lucky in the factions that we chose with this edition, because I feel like Orcs got a awesome codex, and then I feel like I don't even have a codex yet, but I still have the Space Marines detachments, and it gives me options to play with, and I'm not looking to have the most competitive list. I want to make a list that I like, that I can play competitively. That's kind of my thing. I don't necessarily have to play like if I was looking at the win rates in Space Marines were like the top tier thing, I would actually be disincentivized to play the Space Marine detachments because I just wouldn't. It feels almost like it's too easy. Then like it's like, oh, you won because you're just playing the faction that's good, and I don't want to have that. So like I know Space Marines, the core detachment, like Ultramarines, like they're not doing great because they're stuck within just Space Marines, and all the like Black Templar, Blood Angels, and Space Wolves, they're all doing better because they have access to all these specialized units. I'm lucky that I chose Space Wolves for that reason, because I have access to Thunderwolf Cavalry, and they make me fairly competitive, and they're a fun unit. But then I also get access to all the Space Marines core units. So, point being, we are kind of lucky that we chose the factions that we did, because we get to have fun with list building, and we get to be right in that golden range of that like 45 to 55% win rate. So it feels like, if we were to play together, when we play together, it's not going to be like, well, I lost because I'm just playing a bad faction. It's not ever going to be like that, which is probably the case in previous editions when they didn't balance the factions as closely as they do in 10th edition.
I mean,
and it
hopefully
makes it a lot more fun.
Hopefully it's just going to be like balanced enough that we're like, it was just a fun game and we don't really have to think about it.
Right.
I think the biggest adjustment to us going forward is just going to be getting used to how 40K plays in comparison to Star Wars Legion, and maybe getting used to like the game being over on turn 2 or 3. So especially
At
with the
least in these
factions
first
we're
few.
playing. Yeah.
In these first few games that are like 1,000 points, 1,250, 1,500, like they're going to be done in like 2 or 3 turns.
But yeah, let's bring it back around to the list before we end it. So with the points update, I don't know if it may not be related to the points updates at all, but is there anything you're hobbying right now, either to get ready for the points update, or I know you're playing Kill Team a lot. What are you working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm working on my Phobos squad for both Kill Team and for 40K. So I'll have infiltrators and incursors. I'll have both of them. I am still finishing my Thunderwolf cavalry. I got to finish the riders, but everything else is pretty much ready to go. They're mostly done. They just need some touch ups, and they need their faces painted, which I was kind of putting that off. That's basically it. It's mostly just I want to get these Phobos guys done because then I can play them in both Kill Team and for 40K. And those models are really cool. I really like them. They have a bunch of like specialized in that box for Kill Team. They get the Incursor Infiltrator box, and then they get like an upgrade sprue on top of it, which is like a smaller sprue that has a bunch of like cool little, extra arms and head options and shoulders and whatever. And they have some pretty cool little upgrade sprue bits, and they are very unique. They look cool. So it makes me kind of want to paint them more. I think they're going to be a lot of fun in Kill Team, and I think the Incursor Squad and the Infiltrators are going to be a lot of fun in my list as like an objective runner or secondaries or like a support unit. I really like that both of those units can be run as like a support role in my current list. So things to consider, but yeah, those things are what I'm working on right now. So what about you? What are you working on, and what have you done for hobbying?
So the latest thing, and I just finished painting maybe like 2 weeks ago. I finished painting Boss Snickrot. So just maybe this was like a week ago. I guess one of our codex came out for Orks. I just hearing that he got the lone operative keyword, I'm like, all right, it's time to put off painting Boss Snickrot and actually get him done, because I had him primed and I was using the whole slap chop technique to paint him. He was all dry brushed up already for slap chop, and I'm like, all right, let's just get some paint on him. So painted him. I did some camo pants on him, which I haven't done that before, and I followed a little tutorial online where somebody was painting camel pants onto like an Arnold Schwarzenegger model for Alien versus or for Predator or something like that. I was like, all right, that looks good, and I did that for Boss Snickrot. I liked how it turned out. I did mention earlier I bought the Combat Patrol for the Orks, not the Beast Snaga one, but the one that comes with the Def Dread, the 20 boys and Def Coptas, and the War Boss and Mega Armor. So
is that the old Combat Patrol box? Well,
yeah.
Old, now that they're gonna come out with a new one
Now,
because I think it's like the Beast Snaga boys, right?
Now it's old, yeah. It's gonna be discontinued or whatever. But yeah, I wanted the boys mostly because I'm like, oh, it'll be nice to have a 20-man brick of boys with the Green Tide detachment coming out. So I have like enough boys to run 10 right now, so it'll be nice to have 30 boys total. Doesn't seem bad to have some redundancy there. So I did start priming the boys, and I was considering doing slap chop for them, but I was like, I do not want to dry brush 20 boys models. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound fun.
No. So I did a Zenithal on them. I was actually doing that today. I finished. I showed them to you the other night when I was working on them. I've got them all touched up so they all have like a pretty even Zenithal throughout. I think they're ready to start painting. It's just getting that motivation to start them. I think once I start, I'll like throw the orc green skin on there, and I'll be like, all right, this isn't so bad. It's just like the getting started thing. But on my
I'll be interested to see how the Zenithal that you did versus your slap chop. Like if you look at the comparison between the two. I bet it won't be that far off, but I'd be interested to see how they look compared to each other.
I'm super worried. We'll see, but
Oh, really?
I keep telling myself, I'm like, it's just boys. It's just boys. It'll be okay.
I mean, honestly, if you're worried, just throw on like a wash before you start painting them with their actual colors, just to try to get the recesses, even on like that really highlighted parts.
Yeah.
Because that can sometimes, with a slap chop method, or non-slap chop with a zenithal, it can kind of wash out the high points where they're all white. If you can kind of add some detail back with like a wash, that might be a good idea instead of, having those kind of get washed out. It'll look it'd be a hell of a lot easier than slap chop, having to dry brush everything.
Yeah, that's kind of why I went with the zenithal. It's just like, I don't want to do the dry brush. The dry brushing, if you're dry brushing a unit of 10, it's not so bad, but 20 just sounds painful.
And if you're dry brushing well, if you're trying to dry brush to make it look good, you're going to take your time on it and try to build up the dry brush, as opposed to just like slapping them with some paint and then be like, oh yeah, it looks fine, and then moving on.
Yeah, like when I do slap chop, I'll do black primer, and then I'll do like a really dark gray dry brushing, and then a slightly lighter gray, and then another slightly lighter gray, and then like a light gray and a white.
Yeah,
it might be like 3 to 5 layers of dry brushing before I'm like satisfied with it for slap chop.
Yeah, it's a lot of prep, and I can see why you would definitely want to move away from that.
If you're working, like when I was working with Boss Snickrot, I think he had 4 layers of dry brushing before I was like, all right, that looks pretty good. He looks really good, and I'm really happy with him, and I didn't have to do like any highlighting, so that's great. I love painting that way. Like it gets a really good look with very low effort. So we'll see. I'm very skeptical about how my boys are gonna look, but I'm just telling myself in my head they're just boys. They'll be okay.
Yeah, they'll look good once they're on the table.
They just want to crump. That's all.
Yeah,
just get them on the table. But yeah, on the table next to me, though, I have like some Mega Knobs. I really want to get them painted just because they are going to be so good with the Codex now. And I want to play them before they get nerfed. And then the Def Coptas, I, of course, want to get them painted because they'll slot right into the Cult of Speed detachment, which I really want to... that's what really is interesting me from the Codex. I have... like a partially assembled Def Killa Wartrike from Adepticon. Partially assembled because I think I'm going to have to like paint all of the individual bits one at a time and then glue it together after they're painted. So it's basically at a state where I could start painting it, but I'm like, this is going to be a pain in the ass. But I definitely, if I'm going to run the Cult of Speed detachment, I'm going to need a Def Killa Wartrike because I feel like war bikers and Def Coptas are going to be like kind of your core when it comes to Cult of Speed.
Yeah, they'll be kind of cool to see. You have the other vehicles, but I don't think they slot into Cult of Speed, do they? Like the truck and the battle wagon.
Mm-hmm. So I have lots of stuff. I have lots of stuff on hand in my current pile of shame that needs painted. I would say my pile of shame is a little larger than I would like it to be because I have commandos behind me that are like half slap chopped.
Yeah, we won't talk about my my pile of shame. We won't talk about that.
Yeah,
I have far too much.
As a frugal person, having any pile of shame shames me. So
I end up seeing stuff be released for like Kill Team and 40K, different boxes. Like, for example, we'll talk about this in a future episode, but as like a second option, like a second army, when the Kroot box came out, that was really cool to me, so I ended up picking that up.
Mm-hmm.
That is added to my pile of shame. That's like, I don't know, 30, 40 50 models or whatever the hell it is. It's like so.
Yeah,
It's gonna be like I have that, and then I have all my Space Marines crap, and I have a ton of stuff. So your pile of shame is far better managed than mine.
I'm trying to manage just like my Warhammer pile of shame, because my pile of shame for some of the other games is not so great. So,
Well, you've managed it pretty good so far.
yeah, like the Blood and Plunder, I really want to get that painted, but I just need to like dedicate the time to that, and that's a different game, so not related to this podcast. But
Maybe if people care about some of the other games that we play, if you guys want to hear about that, we can do a dedicated episode that is all about the other games we play. Just to, if you're interested in hearing about some other games, and we can maybe talk about that in a future episode. Like tons of different games that we're interested in, and things that are in our backlog that we'd be happy to talk about.
or they might be even be games we haven't played, but we really want to play them.
Right. Yeah.
And just talk about some of the mechanics of those games, of like why it sounds so cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
So how do we wrap this up?
I can try to wrap things up for us. So I guess I hope you guys got some insights into our feelings with the MFM, the Munitorum Field Manual update or whatever. For us, it's just we are very passionate about list building, so just any little points change to us is very interesting, because it gives you a lot of new things to think about with your lists. The codex, like just a codex change alone gives you so many more things to think about, so it's a lot of fun. It adds a lot of fun outside of the game, because I think a lot of this hobby honestly is really outside of playing the game. It's probably
Right.
70-80% outside the game. Definitely for us at the moment, we haven't played a lot of Warhammer, so I think it's reinvigorates you a little bit, and it's nice that it's something that happens like every 3 months. So I'm happy with the points updates, even if you got some stuff nerfed. Sorry, but it probably deserved to be nerfed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's probably for good reason.
it was fun talking about, and I think it's fun just thinking about like what can we do now that we've saved an extra, or in my case, like Mazrog's 30 points less. Can I run him with some Squig Hog boys? I don't know. We'll see. I'll start building some lists and see if I can get him to work in like a Warhorde army or something. So,
and probably in a very soon upcoming episode, we'll look at the Orc Codex deep dive, and you'll have some better ideas at that time, I think, of what you want to do with a thorough review.
Yeah, so we didn't want to cover for this episode. We didn't want to cover other factions because we don't know them. We haven't played other factions, and we don't want to say you deserved this nerf because we don't know. So we're not authorities on that or anything like that. But we would love to hear your thoughts on the MFM, how you felt about the buffs or the nerfs to your faction. Leave a comment.
Anything
if
you're
you'd
excited to play with.
And just in general, like any comments at all, we'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to interact with you guys, and we appreciate you listening to us.
Definitely.
All right, well, we'll talk to you all later, and tune in next time for the next edition of Inwarp Mag.
See you later.